Hello, aliens, and welcome to a very special episode of Area 51 and a half. It is Friday the 13th. Yeah. So, Nick, I know that Friday the 13th, the film series, is one of your favorite franchises.
It is. I love Jason. I love all the lore all the mixed up lore surrounding him and all the stuff that happens. I love Jason in space, Jason X. It's all a lot of fun to me.
What's your favorite kill?
Oh, the sleeping bag kill.
The sleeping bag from Jason X?
No, the original one from Part 7.
Oh, yeah. From Part 7.
Yeah, I love that one. That is just...
One of my favorite moments from that really is from Jason X. Not that it's a great movie, but I like the comedic moments.
Yeah.
I like when they're sitting there going... The hologram girls are like, would you like to smoke pot and have sex?
Premarital
sex. And then you see him with the sleeping bag beating it against the tree.
One of the things that I love about Jason X is that a lot of the actors in it are actors that I grew up with on YTV, like Dove Tiefenbach and whatnot. A lot of them were in Squawk Box, and a lot of them were on Goosebumps and whatnot. But the one girl that gets killed, I think her name's Janessa, she gets sucked out into space, and before she gets finally sucked out into space, she says, "This sucks on so many levels." I'm just like, oh my god. I
know some of the kills are really gruesome, particularly the I guess it's the nitrogen kill with I mean that's just, that looks like old Jello. That's just gross, But I love it when there's comedy. Like in Jason Takes Manhattan, not a great movie by any stretch, but that moment, the one I'm talking about, when he arrives in Manhattan and the guys have the big boom box, and he just kicks it out from under them. And then they're like, "What up, bro?" And he turns, it's like, what? He doesn't say it, but that whole mannerism is like, what? Try me, bro.
The best part is he lifts his mask up and they all run away scared. Oh my god. I love the series. It's fun. It's everything that I look for from a slasher film, especially 80s style slasher. And as far as the big three go, Michael, Freddy, and Jason is my favorite.
And what's really interesting is that back in the 80s, they actually had a Friday the 13th series. And it wasn't, of course, what you would think. It wasn't about Jason. It wasn't about Crystal Lake. It wasn't about anything at all like that. It was that there was a antique shop. And the antiques were cursed or haunted or whatever. And the man that ran the antique shop let these antiques go out, right? They were all possessed and whatever. And so I think it was... I don't know if it, I mean, this is going back like 30 years, so how am I supposed to remember everything, right? But I think it was descendants of his or relatives of his or something like that had taken over the antique shop, and each episode was them trying to find one of these antiques and return it back to the shop and keep the evil from getting out there. One of the episodes was shot in Port Burwell.
Oh, neat. I'm pretty sure don't quote if I'm wrong, sorry, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of it was actually filmed in Toronto.
Yeah, a lot of stuff does get filmed in Toronto because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was probably one of the first times a big show had been shot in our area.
Yeah.
So I wanted to skip school so bad and go to it. And my mother said to me afterwards, "Oh, I wouldn't let you do that." I'm like, really? Anyway.
There's so much we could talk about Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a rich subject matter, right?
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, unlike you guys, I know a time when Jason didn't exist prior to the Friday the 13th movie series. I think you guys grew up completely with it, right?
Yeah, I never saw the movies until last year. But I knew about the hockey mask and that it was something... horror-like.
Yeah, so I mean, it just went right into the cultural zeitgeist.
Well, look at the one episode of The Simpsons where they spoof Cape Fear when Homer runs into Bart's bedroom with a chainsaw and a hockey mask. We know that's a spoof of Jason.
Yeah. And, it's really funny, too, because that hockey mask doesn't even appear until the third one.
That's very true.
The third movie. And it's just become this huge cultural phenomenon. You recognize that goalie mask as being associated with Jason.
Yep.
Halloween was hockey mask, the goalie mask, and scream mask. That's
and
what
Michael
it was.
Myers. Michael Myers.
Well, for us in school, that's what it was.
Yeah.
We're just thinking like costumes and stuff that we'd see as kids.
Yeah. But like I said, I grew up in a time prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would go to school and it was Friday the 13th, they would teach us all about Friday the 13th and superstitions and all that kind of stuff, right? So it bears into mind, why is 13 such an unlucky number? You've done some research, I know.
I've done some research on that one. So 13 is definitely more of a Western idea than like
Western culture.
Yeah, Western culture. Sorry, yeah. The 13th being bad is more of a Western culture idea. Kind of dates back to like the biblical reasons. So a lot of the big 13s came from like Jesus with his disciples. So 12 plus 1 is 13. And then at Da Vinci's The Last Supper.
So just before we get to Da Vinci's Last Supper, like, is it because of the betrayal and the crucifixion and all of that?
Yeah, because of the betrayal. So like the Da Vinci's Last Supper really leaned into it.
Right.
With Judas. So Judas was the 13th and he was the bad one and is seen as like, so that's kind of what the 13th had to do with it.
It's so amazing because Judas Iscariot has in and of himself become this cultural phenomenon, right? Where he's been in certain stories, he's been used as the original vampire, because that's why vampires don't like silver and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. And Friday apparently also dates back to biblical reasons, like Good Friday and Adam and Eve ate the apple on Friday, Cain and Abel on Friday. And apparently, they didn't have calendars back then.
Biblical scholars, can you prove this?
Please prove me wrong. But so that was kind of the start of it. Was the 13th really? Friday the 13th was just bad,
right?
And that kind of went even historically. Friday the 13th, bad things have happened on that day all throughout history. In 1307, King Philip IV arrested hundreds of Knights Templar. Also on Friday the 13th, Germans bombed Buckingham Palace. There was a massive cyclone that killed a ton of people. Tupac died on Friday the 13th.
So basically,
allegedly.
So basically, a lot of bad crap went down on Friday the 13th.
Up until even 2012, like bad things have happened on Friday the 13th. Nothing to do with the superstitions. It just happens to be on Friday the 13th.
Just coincidentally.
Yes. So it is a bad day.
But it's so interesting too because like there's all these superstitions like don't let a black cat cross your path, and if a black cat crosses your path on Friday the 13th, you might as well just give up.
Exactly.
So do we know the origin of that one?
The black cats come from a lot of just the omens because black is always an omen for bad, like with the Grimm and stuff.
And they're associated with witches and witchcraft, being their familiars and.
But look at the black cat specifically. Look at how that has permeated pop culture. You see that it's a recognizable symbol within storytelling. We've seen it in cartoons. We've seen it in movies, specifically Hocus Pocus. Even Spider-Man has a character, the Black Cat, and whose powers are based on luck and all that. All over pop culture.
Oh, Catwoman,
of course.
Yeah, it's all over the place. So,
and the 9 lives. Cats have 9 lives.
Yeah.
Right? They don't.
No.
Sorry to tell you.
They're just really good at landing on their feet.
Unlike the 3 of us.
So, yeah, we have the black cat. We have the don't walk under the ladder.
Right.
We have the don't break a mirror.
That makes sense because somebody is up on the ladder. Something's going to fall from that ladder.
Yeah, a lot of the superstitions that I found have to do with just basic safety. Like, don't walk under a ladder. Don't break a mirror because then glass gets everywhere and it's dangerous.
7 years bad luck if you break a mirror.
Yeah.
Well, how many horror movies are about that?
Yeah.
Mirrors and breaking them.
Well, there's so many superstitions about mirrors.
Yeah.
Even, like, Bloody Mary, too, you should cover it when someone dies.
It gets to witchcraft, too. Like, I've got a book about the witch's mirror.
Yep. Oh, yeah, it's all over the place. So, there's a lot of the super popular ones that don't knock on wood, which...
I thought you were...
sorry, knock on wood.
Yeah, you're
knock
supposed to
on
knock
wood. Yeah,
on wood.
sorry. Woo.
Knock on wood, speaking of.
Which is funny because in Italy, you have to touch steel.
Oh, so
instead of knocking on wood, it's touch steel.
knock on steel or touch steel.
Yeah, touch steel. So a couple of different countries have their own versions of them, which is really interesting. But
I would have thought it would have been like iron, maybe, because iron is supposed to repel witches.
Yeah, I guess they do steel because it's supposed to be like the horseshoe and stuff. The steel, iron, probably.
Oh, the
same
lucky
thing.
horseshoe. And
yeah. But yeah, so it's, I don't know, each culture has their own type of things. One super interesting one that I found in New Zealand, which I did not know about, if a certain bird comes into your house, it's a message of death.
A certain bird.
A certain bird. It's a, sorry if I mispronounce this, it's a fantail Maori named Piwaka Awaka.
Okay.
If it comes into your house, it's a message of death.
You know, that you bring up a very good point about different superstitions from different cultures. Nick, you're from Scotland.
Well, okay, so until I came here, a lot of the superstitions I wasn't familiar with, like black cats weren't considered bad luck. Friday the 13th really wasn't a thing. Just those differences. We have our own superstitions when it comes to like certain times of year, like for example, Hogmanay, New Year's Eve, whatever you want to call it. We have a first foot in the door tradition, which is supposed to bring you good luck all year.
Right. I remember coming to your place one New Year's Eve, and your mother was looking for the first person to come through the door.
Yeah.
And I think you were trying to make it me for some reason.
That's to give you the cheese.
I was just coming for the food.
Oh, yeah.
See, when we do that, it's the first person that walks in on New Year's has to be a friend.
Oh, yeah. So with the first foot in the door in Scotland, it has to be a tall, dark, handsome stranger.
Oh.
We didn't really have a lot of strangers coming to our, so it normally wound up being me just coming in with a piece of cheese. You have to. The cheese brought luck. The cheese is what brought luck.
Okay.
That's why you had me bring cheese.
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't. Huh. He's like, "Can you bring some cheese?" Sure. I guess.
You should have explained it then. Jeez.
Nick is not good at explaining things.
Thanks.
You're not.
A lot of these superstitions do come from England, Scotland, Ireland, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because they would have brought it over as immigrants to the Western culture. Because honestly, I mean, it's a little different in America. I've made this comparison. There is nothing that is really Canadian culture, because Canadian culture is such a, as we call it, a mosaic. Mm-hmm. And it's just made up of a whole bunch of cultures, from French Canadians to Asian Canadians, and that have been here for centuries.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, it's like an American seems to be an American from New York to LA, with some tweaking here and there.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, is like all of North America was pretty much founded with the idea of people coming from other countries, and so they would bring those traditions and those superstitions with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would have to imagine that Louisiana, New Orleans specifically, is probably rife with French superstitions.
They have a ton down there. I haven't
done the voodoo and down in those places. Yeah,
they have their own set of stuff that like we look at and be like, "Huh, that's weird," but like.
Yeah, but you grew up in a region that had some superstitions, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains area, which it's the oldest mountain range in the world. So it's full of all kinds of creepy things and beings and superstitions. And so between that and the Pennsylvania Dutch and the leftovers of the First Nations tribes that were there was a lot of superstitions.
I'm beginning to understand her fascination with cryptoids a little bit more now.
Well, we grew up with Windy Boys, so
and think about all the horror films that have taken place in the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A lot of them are West Virginia, but Pennsylvania had them too. Like I was at the base of one of the big mountains.
Yeah, I mean, it just you start in with the Appalachians, and then you kind of go into the Smokies and all that kind of stuff, right? So I mean, you have that culture that just sort of streams through there. I mean, Pumpkinhead is a good example of a movie that is...
Wrong Turn?
Yeah, that's more the mountain men kind of thing, right? But I mean, when you look at Pumpkinhead, where you have this mythical creature, and you have a witch, and you have like these people that are living kind of rough, but, not but making their way, and
Yeah.
because there's a lot of I don't want to say poverty in the fact that, but there was a lot of people that didn't have a lot of money in West Virginia because it was mostly coal miners and all that kind of stuff, right?
People living within their means.
Yeah, well, sometimes barely within their means.
Yeah.
Like we've seen those kind of stories from Dolly Parton and Crystal Gale and Loretta Lynn and all that kind of stuff, right? So I kind of get why superstitions would be there, because your grandmother would tell you these tales and you as a child would absorb them, and they would be passed down generation to generation to generation, and kind of, if I'm going to be honest, making life fun, right?
Yeah. Well, so one of the big superstitions that I remember was having a kitchen witch.
Yeah.
So it's just like a little like witch on a broom, but that was supposed to bring you like luck, and your cabinets would never be empty, and like, we had some friends that had them.
Yeah, kitchen witches were really popular in the 80s for some reason.
Yeah, but we have
the look on Snyder's face.
Yeah, it was literally just a witch.
It's just a little ornament, right? Little witch that's made up, maybe rag dolls, whatever. However people made them, and little brooms, and you just hang them in your. It was just a trend.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. One of the big ones that I've learned, so this kind of connects to another episode that we'll do later, but like hearing a screech owl at dusk means someone will die. But there's also the thing of if you hear your name get called in the woods, don't go outside at night.
Yeah, good, good advice.
Stranger danger, but it also has to do with a few different cryptids. So it's like, so that's why it's like later in the episode, but it's like, that's an example of that's safe. Like, it's safety. It's just put into a story.
Yeah. Well, that's where most fairy tales were, right?
Yeah.
They were cautionary tales. And what we're really talking about here with some of these things is that we're talking really about American fairy tales. Like, we don't think about them often enough, right? Like, there's Paul Bunyan, there's the Headless Horseman, there's Rumpelstiltskin, as it all goes along. So these are really just, it's a way of telling people to be careful, because it's like, why not scare the bejesus out of people in order to keep them safe?
Well, when you think when you think about it, fairy tales in their essence are scary stories told to warn people of certain behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's what these superstitions, that's what urban legends are. It is modern fairy tale.
Yeah. And then we got ones like they're not really connected to much. Like, if you drowned a spider, it means it's going to rain.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard it.
Yeah, there's that one. The woolly caterpillars predict the length of the winter and how bad it's going to be. But, like, that doesn't have to do with, like...
Those are sort of minor superstitions, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that gets into the Farmer's Almanac and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? Like, I think sometimes, yes, you can look at nature and go, this is probably, like, through observation, right?
Yeah, I think... As humans, we tend to look for patterns in things, even if the patterns don't really exist. We still see them, and like someone could have drowned a spider in his toilet, and then it started raining, and he went, "Oh, this has happened before," and there it is.
Yeah, because we are the only species on the planet that fights against our nature and does dumb crap.
Yep. One of the big ones that I always find that, like, it's true, is a red sky at night, sailors delight, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. Yep. So that one, always, there's something weird if the sky is red in the morning. Something weird happens that day with the weather. Death comes in threes.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to say that one all the time. It used to drive me insane.
But, like, if you look at a lot of celebrity deaths, they do tend to come in threes.
Oh, you think they do?
Well, okay. And again, that is down to human beings looking for patterns and things.
Yeah.
Because it does, in fact, seem like it.
Yeah, because really what happens is that, let's say there's a celebrity, we'll just call him Mr. Jones, okay? So Mr. Jones passes away, all right? Well, now we're aware that Mr. Jones has passed away.
Yeah.
Okay, but then, like, Mr. Jones is, like, I don't know, 80s, right?
Yeah.
Well, then another celebrity. Let's just call her Philomena Wapwinder, right? So Philomena Wapwinder passes away.
I love her music
at the ripe old age of 90. You know, and it's just like, oh, and then like somebody else passes away, and you're just maybe they're killed in a car accident or something. And you're like, oh, look, see, it always comes in threes.
Yep.
But what they don't then do is like maybe a month, 2 months, whatever later, Princess Shanae dies, right? And you're just like, okay, no, but no, that's not 3, that's 4, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're looking for those kind of things because it's leftover old wives' tales. Spoiler, don't come for me. I'm not being misogynistic. That's what they're called.
Yep.
Just as a point of reference here, we didn't name the third person. So for the third person, I'm going with Phil Flabbergaster.
Oh, I like Phil. His movies were phenomenal.
His movies were great.
My God. This is what I deal with.
Wren has lost all control over the guys.
Yes. One that I recently watched Annabelle.
Oh, yeah.
So there's one scene where the rocking chair is rocking, and I just done a bunch of research for this. And apparently, if you start a rocking chair, an empty rocking chair rocking, you're inviting spirits or death. So you need to stop the rocking chair from rocking, like if you get up or it just starts moving. But they do that in Annabelle, and I was like, you're just asking for trouble. Like, this lady didn't stop it at all. And, like, I didn't really register that until I was doing this whole list.
But, you know, that's a fascinating point that you bring up, right? Like, the more you know about these kind of things, and the way that they permeate into pop culture and horror movies, if you know this, that makes that movie or that experience just that much richer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not just that it's rocking, like, ooh, scary. It's like, that's the omen, that you're inviting the spirit by not stopping it.
It'd be interesting to go through the entire Conjuring series, the Insidious movies, Malignant, and really get a grasp on what James Wan knows as far as all this goes.
Yeah, and you know, those movies are so hit and miss. I mean, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're utter garbage.
And very few are in between.
Well, it's sort of like the criticism. We're a little off topic, but I don't mind. Where James Wan seems obsessed with giving you some sort of bizarre little jump scare that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. In the first Conjuring movie, the one that I'm always thinking of is when the actress is there and the white hands come out and they go, I say, what is that all about? Why would a ghost or a demon or whatever just sit there and clap their hand? Like, is there a superstition? We'll have to look that up.
Well, the kids are playing clap clap.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen it.
So I just watched that one too, but they were playing hide and clap clap.
Okay.
So,
but I wonder if there's something more.
I don't know.
Just a quick further add on to the sidebar before we get back on The Nun. The Nun, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the worst, if not the worst, Conjuring film. But
The Nun 2 was good.
Well, hang on. After learning all this, though, I'm kind of curious to go back and watch the first Nun movie and see how much kind of correlates with actual superstition versus what they just made up on.
Yeah,
and a lot of those are probably going to be like more of a Christian superstition. Yeah, exactly. So I bet when I watch it, I'll be like, oh, this and this and this, and you'll be like, oh.
But the thing with the Conjuring, I mean, with the Conjuring universe, they've done the same thing that Marvel did with their universe. Like, it's all tied in together now, and to watch something separately is But I mean, dolls figure into superstition, right? Since we're talking about it, dolls are there, right? Like the original Annabelle is some Raggedy Ann doll. It's like, I'm like, you want me to be afraid of a Raggedy Ann doll, really? But I mean, voodoo dolls and curses.
And what makes it worse / better is the old dolls used to be made actually with the girl's hair. Yeah, so they like, you know, brush their hair and like all the extra hair, they put it on the dolls.
Well, that gets back to people, again, like I said, a lot of this comes out of poverty, because that gets back to the fact that people didn't have a lot of materials, waste not, want not kind of thing, right? So
they'd use,
let's use it.
Yeah, they'd use the hair as like pin cushions, because it actually keeps your pins, like your sewing needles, sharper if you put it in hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they'd put their hair on the dolls.
Wow.
And then, so that kind of made it a little easier for things to get a hold of
and get possessed.
Yeah,
and like Annabelle, the dolls in general have permeated pop culture, not just horror films, but like there are tons of films, tons of stories out there with dolls that come to life. And like I said, not all horror movies. I mean, we have Chucky, we have dolls, we have Puppet Master and whatnot. But, even Indian in the Cupboard and stuff like that it all comes from that very rich idea.
Even before movies, you have dolls like Robert the doll.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Robert.
Yeah, who, Chucky was sort of loosely based on.
Okay, yeah.
And I have seen the actual Robert doll in Key West, yeah.
That terrifies me. I can't even think about
He's
Robert.
He's the cutest little thing, though. He's so cute.
Look at Chucky, though. Like, Chucky.
I bought a replica of Predator.
Chucky's not just a living doll. The whole story of Chucky involves voodoo magic and all stuff like that. And just marrying all those different ideas, which I think is wonderful and a rich lore for a character.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can safely say since the dawn of humanity, there's probably been superstition and magic and stories and, I mean, even the mythologies, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I have two that I really want to mention. One of them has to do with the dolls, kind of. So I think one of the reasons why dolls looking like babies and stuff, so there's the myth of the changeling.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Which kind of is superstitious. So do you know about the changeling? It's
not the George C. Scott movie.
I haven't understand. Continue, because I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm going to teach the Celt some stuff right now. So the changeling, if your baby's crying and not acting like itself all of a sudden one day, it's because the Fae came in and switched your baby out. So you have to take your baby, like the changeling baby. Sorry, it's the changeling baby. There's two different ways. You put it out in the woods, and then the Fae will come get it. Or another one you have to cook a meal in an eggshell to surprise it and force it to show its true self.
I actually watched Unwelcome the other night, and it's about a couple that move into a house and their neighbors are a bunch of murderous goblins. But the idea of the changeling does come into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's the same with the George C. Scott movie where there's the switch of the kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, even although it's based on a true story and grounded in reality, it makes the name of the Angelina Jolie movie make sense.
Yeah. So. And it's funny because my mother was taught. We just watched The Changeling the other night as part of our Halloween kind of stuff, and she was telling her personal support worker, who comes in and gives her a hand, once, twice a week. She was telling her about The Changeling, and Nicole had never seen it, and I'm like, no, Mom, stop, just don't. No, I mean, it's funny when you're sitting there thinking about a spoiler alert for a movie that took place like in the 80s, but it's like, if a person has never seen it, it's like, no, I want her to experience the whole of it so that she is surprised and shocked and everything else as you were when you first saw it, Nick.
I love that movie.
Nick did not want to watch that movie with me.
The whole idea of it sounded utterly snooze-inducing. And then I saw him, like, first and foremost, George C. Scott is now one of my all-time favorite actors of all time. And two, it was a great ghost story.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
The other one so there's obviously a lot about death, but this one comes from Japan. And it's also like a manners sort of thing. But so,
as in like a house.
No,
as in
mind your manners.
Mind your manners. Okay. So the bowl of rice that you get at like a sushi place, right? Bowl of rice, eat it with chopsticks. Never put your chopsticks straight up in the bowl.
Okay, why?
Because one, the utensils look like the number 4. It has to do with
that's an unlucky number for them, yeah.
Which means death. Right. So it's the same symbol, and you say it the same way. It also looks like incense sticks used at funerals. So you do not put your chopsticks straight up and down. And also another one is don't point at anyone with your chopsticks. It's
that
just
one
rude.
I've heard.
I know a lot of people do it, but whenever I see the chopsticks, like I have some friends that have done that, and I'm like, take that out. Like that's bad luck. Yeah. Like you can't do that. Just because it has to do with the funerals and stuff, which I find very interesting. And like if you're in with a bunch of Japanese people, they may get really offended.
Well, the Asian culture is all about being connected with the universe in a way. So are the Scandinavian Nordic cultures, but in a different way. But with them, like it's all about luck. It's all about numbers, right? And to the point that because there are so many Asian Canadians, the phone companies have to be aware that they only want certain numbers in their phone, right? And so they actually have to work I would say very hard, because, there's only so many numbers you can, and combinations you can use. But like they don't want unlucky numbers in their phones. They don't, like, it's all very, like, you don't mess with that kind of.
No, because it could mean really bad stuff for them. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's always interesting. I love looking at what other cultures do. So if you guys have any superstitions that your family do, or you've heard of your family doing in the past, let us know, because I'm always interested in learning these sort of things.
Right.
Like, I have a huge list that a lot of it we haven't even dived into, and we haven't touched a lot of the big normal ones, like the horseshoe and the all that kind of stuff. But
there's even a certain way that you have to hang the horseshoe. You can't hang it upside down because the luck will run out of it. You do have to hang it up. And it's so many, like when I was a kid, I saw so many lucky horseshoes in people's houses that were
upside down.
And it's like, well, that's why you don't have any luck. And, even the benign ones that we had as kids. Don't step on a crack or you'll break your mother's back.
Yep, which has to do with the cracks are portals to the supernatural world.
Yeah. Oh.
Which is also the mirror. So
there we go. I mean, it just permeates pop culture in a way that we are just learning about ourselves by doing this special. Sorry if you thought it was going to be all about Jason. Fooled you. But speaking of which, let's start wrapping it up. Yep. Nick, what is your favorite Jason movie?
Favorite Jason movie?
What's your favorite Friday the 13th?
Part 7. I love part 7. It's I just like the fact that Jason goes up against someone that can actually kick his butt. And
is that the one that I call Jason McCary?
Yeah. Fun fact. That part 7 was originally supposed to be Freddy versus Jason, but that got kiboshed. And then they reworked the script.
Yeah, and then they did the meta one with where basically we learned that Jason's a deadite.
I'm okay with that.
So am I. I mean, they never did bring that in, but like people are always talking about Jason versus Michael. No, I want Jason versus Ash. Oh my God.
There is a comic book, Ash versus Jason versus Freddy. I
don't care about Freddy. I just want, but before Campbell gets too old or crotchety, well, maybe he's already there. I don't know, but like, do it. I want to see Ash versus Jason. Like, could you imagine? Here's the synopsis.
Oh no.
I mean, Ash goes through crap, right?
Yeah.
He goes through crap. He's been going through crap since like the early 80s. He's old and fat now. He just wants a nice, relaxing weekend with a cabin in the lake, and he goes to Crystal Lake, and it doesn't get that nice, relaxing weekend.
No.
And you can even have that thing where people are convincing him. Hefe maybe is convincing him to go. He's like, listen, bad things happen in a cabin. I don't want to go there. But they convince him to somehow, probably with wine, women, and song. And of course, they choose Crystal Lake. Why not? It would be funny. It would be great. It would prove that Jason's a deadite.
New Jersey's not that far from Michigan.
It would be logical. Yeah, exactly.
Which one's your favorite, John?
Out of the Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
My favorite is 1 and 2.
1 and 2?
Yeah, although I think they did the final girl dirty in 2, but,
There's a whole thing about that. Basically, she wasn't available.
Yeah. She was available for 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah, that was basically all they got.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Did they I assume they have. Have they done a NECA of Sackboy Jason?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
They basically have a NECA of every Jason for each movie, except Jason X. I don't think there's a NECA of Jason X or Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah. Well, aliens, thank you for joining us on our landing pad for this Friday the 13th special. This is Spooky Uncle John and
Snyderman 501, Nick Snyder.
Hi, Lily, the Techno Mage.
Signing off, and we'll see you for our regular episode shortly.